think there's one thing I wanted to say about trial and error, which is I actually think that it comes down to, like you say, about information.
No, it's like I spilt Huel in my shirt before recording.
Oh my God. Vile. But I think trial and error is different based on, is it trial and error, you don't know, you hit it, you die, you learn it? Or is it you know what it is, but you optimize how to do it? And that's the thing that's happening us in Raid. We will see the fight and we'll die and go, oh, we did okay. We'll have a very short period of trial and error of learning the fight. We'll tend to read the dungeon journal and talk about it, stuff, whatever else, know the basics. But then the trial and error that comes in for us specifically, and this is true in our like our Mythic Plus runs as well, it's very execution based and also optimization based. So Ansarek, we know phase 1.
Yeah.
We know exactly what to do in phase 1. The problem is sometimes people aren't in the right place. Sometimes people don't press the right buttons.
Yeah, the problem is like our 2 tanks keep on wiping the raid.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
Sometimes I don't press VB before I get feasted and then I die and I go, fuck's sake. Or sometimes I don't taunt and Matt just eats both of them. Like, oh shit. Yeah, we do have 2 tanks, both called Matt. Very funny. Or sometimes I get somehow auto-attacked with Liquefy and he's still alive and I don't understand how. I'm like, oh fuck. But I think even things like, you know, do I AMS the first route or the second route before the intermission? It's the small things like that. It's like, where exactly do we go with orbs on Kaivesa? We know roughly where, but how does every individual time getting there? How do people move? How far do they move with the rifts? How far do they move with the charges? People know how to do the fight. It's the actual doing that's the challenge.
That's where the trial and error is going to come
That's where trial and error, I think, is good. That's where I think it's great for like all that progression. In M+, for us, it's the same, where we know how to do all the fights, but sometimes it's how much longer can we survive with this? How much more can we pull in this individual? Can we take this extra pack with the cooldowns? Or can we do it? Sometimes we fail, sometimes we do it, but it works because we have more stun stuff like that. And I think that's where trial and error has a place, and it definitely does. I think the problem largely is where people expect not to have trial and error. People expect to walk in and do it because of a variety of reasons, including it's entitlement, it's rude to be bad at WoW, all that stuff. I think there's all that kind of puts it away.
And the thing is, it is rude to be bad at WoW.
Yeah, it literally is.
Blizzard have made it that way.
Yeah. And not even, there's nothing Blizzard can do to not make it that way. They can mitigate it. But by the design of the game, if you die, like theoretically, you're on the last boss of a key, you've got all the time in the world, you die early on. That's still rude because you've still wasted more time.
You have, yeah.
If you're not optimizing your DPS, that's technically rude. It's just the gradation of rudeness gets to the point where Blizzard don't mitigate that all the time as best they can. They do kind of go, yeah, well, if you're a massive shithead on Ansarek and pop early, you've just wiped the fucking group.
And
and that's sometimes fine. Sometimes
my big thought, if you want to solve this problem, you need less mechanics, but better mechanics that are more clear. And sometimes if you have less noise, you can have more signal. And that could be more interesting, more fun. The timer.
Yeah.
So I think the timer is foundationally lazy design. I know of many in the industry who would agree. It's quite looked down upon as like the lazy solution. In the same way that, you know, I mean, it's always fun if, you know, if one of your parents is in the trades, and they, you know, go into a house or they see something like, my God, that's some mighty bad silicone work. Or Jesus, who grouted that? That's kind of how the timer's often seen. It's fucking lazy.
Yeah.
So your thing there is, right? The timer makes every single thing here worse. By far.
Yeah.
Trial and error is the bread and butter and essence of raiding. And it works because raiding is not on a timer. It is a hill to climb, not a hill to climb in time.
And even then, it's on a timer. Because
Well, yeah, it's on the
timing.
natural timer of
real life
you
timing.
playing the game and wanting to achieve your goal. You already have a fucking timer.
Yeah.
So by making it a speed run, Blizzard closes off loads of design space. So they just have foundationally less interesting dungeons. And they exacerbate all the weaknesses of their game while also incentivizing things that unlevel the playing field, such that you should go to Quasi's channel, get his playter, because it's great and it'll help you.
Kill the timer until key 12 plus. Make every key go up +1 on the clear.
There you go.
Game fixed. Haha. Not fixed. But I immediately think of that and go, there's probably a lot of downsides to that, but I don't immediately see them all. I'm just like, that sounds like it would probably solve.
Look at people just fucking play delves and delves and delves and delves and delves.
Because the failure rate, the failure is not being able to beat the boss.
Yeah.
So you disband and go, fuck it, we'll try again.
Yeah, now here's the thing though. What you want is a machine for learning. Raids are a fucking learning machine. Now let's say you have somebody failing a mechanic at last boss of a dungeon.
Yeah.
They're fucked. They're fucked. The group could disband. It could all go tits up.
Yeah.
They don't get to try again. And if it was just, can you clear the dungeon on that hard difficulty? And you'll get more gear quicker if you're able to do the dungeon faster. We don't need a timer. And a bunch of people are struggling to do that final boss. Maybe someone is going to have multiple pulls of that boss with less humongous anxiety, such they'll actually learn the mechanics and enjoy the game, rather than have everyone be super fucking, mean to them and make it so they're anxious. And anxious people are the fucking worst, and they're bad at everything, and they're bad at learning. So you don't want your game to create an anxiety machine.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people
does that.
There's a lot of people disagreeing with removing the timer. I think the challenge being the time, I think, works for pushing keys. I think because I think that
beyond
works
12,
as well,
great.
but I'm not sure about. I think there's more gains to be had from removing it for lower keys than there is to lose it. Like, I get, obviously people will hold Lust, people will hold CDs and stuff like that, and I think that's fear of people playing wrong. I think if you've got a group of people who want to do a +10 and they have to hold CDs for everything, I think that's probably okay in the grand scheme of things. Because
it's also not going to fucking happen. It's barely going to happen because do you know what it'll be?
There is a chance of the meta being that, especially if you have bad groups and you have your geared upgrade pipeline, means everyone feels forced to do a +8 or +9 or whatever. So I get that's right. I understand that point. It's like, it's not a perfect solution, but to me it feels like those are relatively minor issues.
Yeah, you see that's the problem of being logical, being super logic and rational first.
Yeah,
it's so easy. The thing is, you follow numbers, you follow data. Cool. There's lots of things you haven't done, and because you haven't done those things, you don't have their numbers and their data. So while you think you are being very objective, you're in fact ignoring the impact of things you haven't done and potential upsides that you don't yet know about. That can be a problem with fear. And it can be a problem with game development in a large company because people are going to be risk adverse.
Rightly so, I think.
Yeah, rightly so, because if they, if you have some big ballsy design that might work, and flip me, I have a story of that's related to World of Warcraft years ago that I absolutely cannot tell. But it's a good innovation in the game that people really liked. That, because it was risky, conferred big fucking risk in its making.
Extra beds in Goldshire.
That's it. So, I'm not going to say what it is, but it's an example of sometimes the moonshot works, sometimes not doing the default works. But if you're doing a system, doing a feature, and it doesn't pan out, but you followed standard internal best practice and all of the data and metrics you had available to you, yeah, cool.
Following
You didn't do anything wrong.
Following data is the realm of cards.
That's the thing. It's like, why are people are pissed off at AAA gaming and all the fucking, exec-driven, risk-averse thinking that ends up counterintuitively being really risky, because now everybody in a attempt to manage risk is making the same fucking type of game.
Well, I actually don't think that as many executives as we think actually follow data-driven trends. I think they're all just morons. But that's a different story. That's a different story. I think it is kind of awkward, because obviously, like, we're in armchair dev territory, but we are talking from like fairly decent principle kind of standards of solving this stuff. Oh, why is the camera not swapping to me? Hello? Oh, cool. MXFAG must have shut itself.
Love that.
Perfect. Why did it do that? Oh, it didn't. Interesting. No. That's very strange then. Huh. That's interesting.
There is a ghost in the machine, and it's looking at me.
Excellent. Very happy.
Look, that's a kind of fun, fiery discussion that I love, that I enjoy. I think it's good to sometimes be a little bit more blue sky with it. I think it's actually good to say things that offend people, because that means you're poking at the entrenched opinion, right? You're poking at the thing that everybody's taken for granted. So that's why when I talk about, oh, fuck it, remove the key, there's probably loads of people who'd love that. But do you know who will not love that? All the people who currently enjoy getting a good time and pushing their rating and stuff. There is benefit in generating ideas that are a little bit risky, little bit offensive, little bit crazy, little bit weird. You don't have to just go and implement them, but you can maybe learn a lesson that you can apply elsewhere. And maybe that is for the competition version of this game. The timer's great, and it fits that type of player. But perhaps we cut the timer elsewhere and we just have the content be hard.
Realistically, I also think it comes down to, we wouldn't probably have had this conversation about it changing the timer at above 12, but Blizzard are happy enough to change the rules mid key increase anyway, with the Zaltath's Guile replacing bargains. Yeah, I think they're happy enough to do that. So I guess kind of there you go.
And so I guess to end the segment, Blizzard's fixes and things, or things they've done there, that will do absolutely zero. Now,
absolutely zero.
Hang on. It'll do absolutely zero to the real problem.
Oh, of course, yeah.
That basically what they've done there is they've flicked in a few paracetamols. That's it. The core problem of, do people find things intuitive? How are our reward systems pushing people into content, and is that content we've correctly prepared them for? Obviously no changes there do anything towards that. And I'm glad that when I do dungeons, it is basically just like a small raid, because it's with people who I trust. And most importantly, we all have a long-term incentive, right? Because we raid together. So if we start flaming each other out during a dungeon, that's not going to be good for our raid, right? Like, the incentives are correct. Whereas if everybody is, Mythic Plus, to me, it's almost like a PvP extraction shooter at this stage. Can you get the thing that you want without dying? P.S. Everyone else is going to lose.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that.